All right. Well, good evening. My name is Nichelle Wilson, Neighborhood Training and Development Program Manager with Community Engagement for the City of Charlotte. Welcome, everyone, for our workshop tonight. We are so happy to have you all join us for this workshop on learning how to be Red Cross ready. And tonight we're joined by Eliza Gavertes. Close enough.
Close enough.
Eliza is the disaster program manager with American Red Cross, and she serves counties in both North and South Carolina. So, Eliza, I will let you go ahead and get started.
Well, thank you so much, Nichelle. I'm so pleased to be with you and to have been invited to this great group. And if we're meeting in person, I would love to ask each and every one of you, where you come from and what you do for a living and how this presentation could be, specifically tailored to the information that you're going to need out of it. So because this is sort of a recorded presentation and you may not want to be on camera, that's perfectly fine. Please feel free to write down your questions for a Q&A session at the end. I'm happy to answer any questions. So what we're doing is we're talking about Be Red Cross Ready. That is part of the preparedness that we do as part of disaster cycle services. Preparedness comes first, the next is respond, the next is recover, and it's a cycle, so we go right into preparedness. So preparedness means, what can we do to empower the individual, the family, the community to feel safe and to feel protected to a certain degree that you can be in a disaster. And I feel strongly that the more you know, the more empowered you are, and the calmer you can be when faced with adverse conditions. And so let's go ahead and get started. Next slide. So, so this is interesting. There are so many types of natural disasters that can happen. We have floods and hurricanes and tornadoes, earthquake, fire, regular winter storms. And interestingly enough, very, very often they happen inconveniently. They don't happen on a particular date in the calendar that you can just expect. Very often you have just a few hours to respond. Sometimes nothing at all, like a fire. Sometimes it's a hurricane, right, where you might have a good 4 or 5 days to prepare. Flooding can often happen in a flash. That's why they call it flash flooding. So they can happen with little or no warning, and they can happen anywhere at any time. I just came off a disaster relief operation for Western North Carolina, just an hour and a half away. And this community next to a river, they flooded when Fred, it was tropical Depression Fred is what it officially was called. And its remnants left behind several towns in several counties demolished, basically. Their homes and trailers and cars essentially got washed down the river, and they had no idea that that their community would be affected this way. And so they have to figure out what they're going to do. And so Red Cross tries to intervene before something like that happens to make sure that you know what to do. So let's go on to the next slide. Which hazards do you suppose that, well, we face, most of these, right? There's actually only one on this entire slide that we do not face. And I'd love to call on you in particular, but since I can't, I'm going to tell you that the answer is volcanoes. The only thing that doesn't happen here is a volcano, or hasn't happened in millions of years, and so we don't expect it to happen in several million more. But everything else can. Home fires are so common. Red Cross responds to a home fire, a residential fire, every 7 seconds in the United States. That's a lot, right? Nobody plans to have that. Earthquakes also come and maybe it's just a 2.0 out here. I used to live in California. I lived in California when that Northridge quake hit, and no one was expecting that, right? So, so these are all possible. Next slide. So in our region, past experience tells us that we face these number of hazards that can have a huge impact on individuals and the community. Next slide. And it's up to you to be ready. Whoops, one less. There you go. So in any of the disasters that I've mentioned, a lot of people assume that someone else will be there to help. And the truth is that that's just not true. Very often, in fact, just in recent memory, you often find those who haven't evacuated who get caught perhaps on their roofs because their entire house is flooded and they're waiting for like a helicopter to come and take them away. That's what emergency management and the fire department, the police department, and everybody who's been brought to the scene to do is to help in basic survival mode. They are trying to save lives for the first 72 hours. They're often trying to find anybody who may have perished. And so for folks who are sheltering in place or in an actual shelter, you're just getting, the very basic type of supplies and food, perhaps. And so the idea is that we want to make sure you're ready to prepare yourself, your home, your family, and possibly even your neighbors so that you can get through the first 72 hours before the first responders can even get to you. Because on average, the groups that can respond are, they're only prepared for normal day-to-day operations, and the resources are limited during a disaster. So the other good reason to try and do what you can to shelter in place is because, you never know. The roads might be impassable, utilities may be unavailable, hospitals and first responders could be overwhelmed. Banks, grocery stores, gas stations, pharmacies, schools, workplaces, those could all be closed for days. And you may also want to help neighbors with functional and access needs. So the main takeaway here is don't count on receiving help right away. Okay, next slide. And so all of us should be as prepared as possible. Now, will your preparation be perfect? No. Will your preparation make things quick and easy or painless? Not always, but planning and preparation will help you to be safe and recover quickly. So what does it mean to be prepared? So we're prepared when we can take proactive actions to be safe. We want to react in the right ways. We want to be able to adapt to tough challenges and recover quickly from difficulties. Go ahead, next slide. So what does this mean? What does it look like? So we say to be Red Cross ready, you need 3 things. You need to get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. To get a kit, your kit should contain the supplies that you're going to need at home or can easily carry with you if you have to evacuate. Make a plan means you should identify the steps you'll have to take to respond to specific disasters. For each disaster, you want to decide who in your household will do that, where you're going to go, and how you'll communicate with one another. And finally, be informed means that you know how you're going to get your information if a disaster occurs and what resources are available in your community. This will allow you to quickly respond to help yourself, your household, and your community. So let's now look at each of these in just a little bit more detail. Next slide. So if a disaster strikes in your community, you might not have access to food, water, electricity, a medical facility, or even a drugstore. Preparing a disaster kit for your household is an important step to keep everyone safe and healthy during a disaster. So you want to consider assembling 2 types of kits. In one kit, you want to put everything you'll need to stay at home for at least 3 days. And as you're able, work together enough supplies in this kit to last for 2 weeks. The other kit, often called a go bag, much like you see this backpack here, should be lightweight and a smaller version that you can take with you if you have to leave your home quickly. It should contain everything that you would need to be on your own for 3 days. That's 72 hours. And based on the needs of the members of your household, this could be one kit for the entire household or separate kits for each member. You want to customize the kits to meet everyone's personal needs and the disasters that are common to your area. And if you think back, some of the flooding news reports that you've heard, you'll see folks walking down the road with a kayak or a canoe filled with, different totes, plastic ones that seal, sometimes a backpack, and just sometimes a grocery bag, right? And so you want to keep in mind. In let's say the situation of like an earthquake, you might actually be better off sheltering in place. However, in a flood, especially if you're in a flood zone, you want to evacuate to higher ground, right? So that means that you're going to need to move, which means that you're going to need to carry what you can. If you have children, they may or may not be able to carry their own bag. So these are the types of things that we ask you to think through. Okay, next slide. So what goes in it? So to build your kit, think about what you use on a daily basis that you might do if these resources were limited or not available. And I always laugh every time there's a winter storm in Charlotte because people buy out the store of milk and bread. And then the question is, what are people going to do with milk sandwiches? Right? But the truth is that very often these types of supplies run out very quickly. And so you need to make sure that you are thinking about what you use on a daily basis. So you start with the basics: food, water, clean air, and any life-sustaining items that members of your household need to maintain their health, safety, and independence. So basic supplies include non-perishable, easy-to-prepare food items. So that might be a pull top can. Your beanie weenies or some canned fruit or something to that effect. If you do have a regular can of whatever it is, beans, let's say, make sure that you have a manual can opener in your backpack or in your box, in your to-go kit. And then, of course, water. So every person drinks about 1 gallon per person per day. Drinks and or uses. So that could be for hygiene or hydration. And remember, you may be without electricity and you may only have the amount of water that you have stored. Okay, here's a funny story. I moved to Minnesota from California, where, obviously in California, we have earthquakes all the time. But when I moved to Minnesota and I heard the alarm sound, I immediately went to the tub and filled it up with water. And I was telling this to a friend later, who laughed at me because she said, that's not what you do. You don't fill it up with water. You get in the tub and put a mattress over your head, over your body. But in an earthquake type situation, I would have been correct in that I filled up my bathtub with water because chances are water would be turned off and or on a boil advisory. So again, you want to keep in mind the types of hazards that are occurring in your neck of the woods. So again, let's just talk about this really quickly. How much water do you think you need to store? So the rule is at least 1 gallon of water per person per day, half for drinking and half for sanitation. And you may need more than this depending on the specific needs of those in your household and the environment in which you live, okay? You're also going to want a flashlight and a battery-powered or hand crank radio. This is especially interesting to me for 2 reasons. One is the flashlight situation. Very often people remember to put this in their go bag or their home kit, but what they do is they put the batteries inside the flashlight. And so if you've ever gone to something that's had, let's say a flashlight that's had its batteries in it for a couple of years before you needed it, those batteries are now no good, right? They've crusted over. So you want to keep the batteries separate from the flashlight. That's number one. Number two is I have a communications background, and I'm especially concerned with folks being able to both provide information and receive information. In the midst of a disaster, it can be very calming just knowing that there are other people out there that are either trying to get to you or they are aware that you're there. Just being able to receive a news report can be very calming in and of itself. So that hand crank radio, you know, you wouldn't believe it, but they actually sell them still. And they also actually sell them with weather radios. So you'll know that in the middle of a disaster, if more weather happens to be coming your way. That just happened, remember, in Louisiana. They got hit with Fred. And then immediately after that, what was its name? Now I've forgotten. Nate? I can't remember. But Nate's been pouring rain on them for, you know, a week straight, right? So tarps, things of that nature, making sure that they can cover themselves, but also find out from the outside world what's happening and what to expect. Okay. In addition to not including the batteries or not putting them inside your flashlight, you want to make sure you have extra batteries. First aid kit is a great idea, and you should put it together based on the types of things that you need. So a family with children, you might have a whole bunch of scrapes, things of that nature, and you want to make sure you have antibiotic ointment. You might have a larger or an elderly person who may need a different kind of comfort given to them. So keep thinking that through. A 7-day supply of medications and medical items. This is definitely important, especially for those who may have diabetes, something of that nature where you're going to have to keep the medicine chilly. You want to make sure that you're prepared for something like that. You also want to keep a copy of all your prescriptions, your dosages, and your treatment information. I happen to use Novant, and I have a MyChart Health, and I can go straight to it, and it shows me all of the medications that I use and what the dosages are. I can go ahead and print that, and because again, you don't want to rely on something that uses electricity. So you want to talk with your doctor or pharmacist about other actions you can take just in case of a missed medicine or something like that. A multi-purpose tool is also a great thing to have with you, something that can cut or slice or bind, etc. One of those, you know, Swiss Army knife type of tools. Any sanitation and personal hygiene items. And again, copies of personal documents, medical lists for sure, but also passports, the deed or lease to your home. That came up in Fred, in the flooding that we just came back from. Most people, literally, they didn't have any ownership papers whatsoever on them because the whole thing flushed down the river. And so it made working with FEMA a little bit more difficult, right? Had to track down those records. So at the very least, I would suggest that you take a picture of those items, but even better yet, put them, print them and put them in a waterproof, like Ziploc bag. You also want to keep current photos of loved ones. Remember to update those every 6 months, especially for children because they change so fast, right? Possibly a cell phone and charger, a household member and their emergency contact information. Let's say somebody travels very often. You also might want to think about bringing extra cash. I told you I was in the Northridge earthquake, and I had driven into town. The power at my place about 20 miles away had come back on. So I didn't think that anything was wrong, and I didn't bother listening to the news report. I put on a kid's tape for my son, and we were just moving along into Northridge, and I discovered the hard way that I had no diapers, no food. I was running out of gas, and I had no cash. And it didn't matter anyway because the gas stations depend on power to run their pumps, right? So it's these kinds of things that you want to keep in mind. You know, you don't want it to weigh it down and make it feel like there's, you know, the world is sitting on top of your shoulders to get this right. These are just simply ideas to get you thinking about what you might need. So don't get overwhelmed by the list. Consider building your kit one step at a time and focus on adding a few items each week until you feel that your list is complete. One last thing, you don't want to forget to make a kit for your pets or your service animals. Obviously, they're going to need food and water and possibly some medicine, so you want to make sure that those supplies are included in your kit as well. Okay, next slide. So, and customizing your kit. So, for example, there are weather radios out there with text display and a flashing alert so you can stay informed even if you have difficulty hearing, right? If you have a functional need, obviously you don't want to put something in your kit that doesn't do you any good. Right? So you ask yourself what other things that you might want to add based on the specific needs of your household. So you go and you collect those items as appropriate from around your home as soon as you become aware of the potential disaster. And if you need to evacuate, you want to make sure that you have, medical supplies. Let's say somebody uses a syringe or a glucometer. You want to make sure that perhaps you have an extra pair of glasses. Maybe they're your old prescription, but you still have them in a drawer. It's better to use an old pair than not have any pair at all, right? And also any supplies you might need. Maybe you're pregnant now, but a baby is coming. So you're going to need things like bottles and formula and baby food and diapers, that kind of thing. So if you can think of any additional supplies, jot them down as we're chatting, as we're talking here. Sometimes people put things in their kit like a whistle, a respirator, matches, rain gear, towels. I know one person who makes it a point to make sure that everybody in the family has a pair of dry socks. The military, all about dry socks, because that can make the difference. If you've been through a flood and it's chilly, the best thing in the world is a pair of warm, dry socks. Maybe you need tools and supplies for securing your home, the plywood that people go for, or plastic sheeting to keep things dry, duct tape, etc. There's all kinds of things that you can think of that that you can put in your kit. But now, of course, you don't want it to get too big. Remember, you're trying to accommodate the needs of yourself, your family, pets, and if possible, your neighbors. So that's what's to keep in mind as you're building this. All right, go ahead. Next slide, a kit for everywhere. So since you don't know where you'll be when a disaster occurs, consider preparing supplies for work and for your vehicles. So this is something that I could have done in Northridge had I known any of this information, or had I known it and actually done something about it, right? It's a two-step process. I can talk all day, right? But whether or not you decide to put this kit together is completely up to you. So we should work on getting a container for you, but kids should also have a container, such as a backpack or a bag that they can grab and go in case you need to be evacuated. You want to have some food in the kit, maybe some comfortable walking shoes, and at your workplace in case an evacuation requires walking long distances. You never know. And a kit for your vehicle is important in the event that you're ever stranded. In Minnesota, people say if you get caught in the snow, don't leave your car. Don't ever leave your car. And a lot of people, unfortunately, run into bad troubles when they do. So that's just one thing. When you're down here in Charlotte, you want to be aware that of extreme heat or possibly extreme cold. And what does that mean? And what do you need with you in order to be able to take care of yourself and your family? Okay, next slide. All right, this is make a plan. So knowing the hazards likely for your area, you can now make your plan. Different hazards require you to take different actions. For instance, during a tornado, you need to move to a basement or a storm cellar or an interior room on the lowest floor with no windows. For a home fire, everyone needs to evacuate immediately and meet at their designated safe meeting place. So those are two very different things. And you want to make sure that your family knows what the difference is and when to enact each. So you're talking with everyone in your household about how to prepare for and respond to these different hazards that are most likely to happen where you live, learn, work, and play. All right. Identify responsibilities for each member of your household and plan to work together as a team. I often get asked questions about kids, anywhere I would say between the ages of 3 to 10. As long as kids are informed about what could go wrong, they are often the folks who are saving their families from a disaster. Very often, our fire clients point to the children that said they knew what to do because they had learned how to escape. So you want to identify responsibilities for each member of the household and plan to work together as a team, no matter how old or young people are. If a household member is in the military or has extended business travel on a regular basis, you want to plan how you'll respond if they're away. Individuals with access and functional needs will need to prepare a bit differently. So you want to create a personal support network that can help you plan and provide assistance if a disaster happens. So remember not to depend on just one person. Include a minimum of 3 people in your network. So that could be, a doctor, a favorite a physician's assistant, a neighbor. It could be someone that you can depend on who will know what your plan is as well. And then you want to make sure you practice your disaster plans with your personal support network at least twice a year. And we'd like to combine a couple of efforts there. When you turn your clock forward and you turn your clock back, that's the time to check on your kit and your support network, as well as change your clock and test the batteries in your alarm. You're doing it on a regular enough basis so that you sort of create a muscle memory about it, and it's foremost on your mind during those 2 times a year. And then if nothing happens, you don't have to worry about it, right? Don't forget to think about what you're going to do with your pets. Okay, most American Red Cross shelters cannot accept pets because of health and safety concerns and other considerations. However, service animals are allowed in Red Cross shelters. So you want to contact your local emergency management agency, not 911, but the regular phone listing for a list of pet-friendly shelters. And there are actually the Humane Society and others oftentimes will be able to provide that. In certain situations, even cows and ducks and chickens and pigs need to be cared for. And so very often they're sent to like the fairgrounds, etc. And so there are places to bring even you're not your pets, but your ag family as well. Okay, next. All right. So your plan should include key details, right? Identify 2 ways to evacuate from every room in your home, your neighborhood, or your town, depending on how big the disaster is. So let's go over this a little bit more. In your home, you may have a back door and a front door, or maybe you have a front door and a back sliding window. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you understand where those places are, and that nothing is blocking those entrances. Then you want to know 2 ways to evacuate your neighborhood. I happen to live on a cul-de-sac, right? But there's a way out of our cul-de-sac cutting through other people's yards, in addition to the main way we drive out and in daily. The 2 ways to leave your town is the sense that on a map, you can see different roads that you can be leaving town in. And this is a situation because you never know, maybe there's a gas leak. That happened in Northridge where I worked. I couldn't go down the street I worked on because a gas pipe had broken. And so I couldn't travel that direction. Obviously, one of the freeways literally came apart. So you want to make sure that if you have to drive to evacuate, you can in any direction. And that, of course, depends on how big the disaster is, but it helps to put a map in your emergency kit as well for that very purpose. So you want to plan on what to do in case you're separated during a disaster, right? You might not be at the same place at the same time with your children, with your parents. whomever. So you want to choose two places to meet. One is right outside your home in case of a sudden emergency, such as a fire, all right? And one is outside your neighborhood in case you cannot return home or are asked to evacuate. So think for a moment where those places might be. Now, of course, it might be 1.5 to 5 miles down the road, but you might be able to walk there or swim there or canoe there a lot faster than you think. And it still makes sense to make it a meeting place for all of those who need to reunite. You also don't want to forget to consider any transportation challenges that might be encountered by individuals who use mobility assistive equipment or those who don't have access to a vehicle. So perhaps you and somebody in your household uses one of those battery operated wheelchairs, or a neighbor. You want to keep in your mind how you might assist that person to be able to evacuate. Are you able to? Do you need help? Have you set that up in advance, just in case? An important part of your disaster plan is also how you're going to communicate, especially if you and members of your household are not together when disaster hits. Remember, sometimes your cell phone will not work. Obviously, smoke signals and pigeon carrying is not really an option. So sometimes people have resorted to leaving a handwritten note at a shelter. There are bulletin boards that can do that. If we have electricity, Red Cross does have a Safe and Well program, much like you've seen on Facebook, where it says, you know, I've marked myself safe from such and such wildfire, that kind of thing. And you're going to determine now and ahead of time what important records you're going to need, where they're going to be stored, such as a safety deposit box or a fireproof box. And remember, it's a good idea to keep copies in your kit as well. If you're without power for an extended period of time or have to evacuate, it will be important to have a place to stay. So it's important to, it's a good idea to find a place close if you have to leave because something like a home fire or a place farther away in case an entire community or region is impacted by something like a hurricane, flood, or tornado. Those hotels are going to fill up quickly. You might want to be able to reach out to a friend or a family member who lives within reach and let them know in advance or ask them in advance if you can crash at their place. And if the authorities encourage you to shelter in place, ensure that all of your household members are aware of any actions that they need to take and where in the home they should go. Not in the tub filled with water with a mattress on top. That's not the right combination. So once you have your plans developed, you want to practice, practice, practice. Review plans with everyone in your household. If anyone has a personal support network or requires assistance, you want to be sure to review the plan with them as well. You want to practice with everybody, members of your household, your personal support network, and anyone else you may rely on in an emergency or disaster, and that might include your pet or service animal. Okay, next slide. So communication after a disaster. Since communication is such an important part of our plan, we should talk about it a little bit more. We're thinking about a communication. We want to start by taking the following steps. You want to complete a contact card for each household member. I don't know about you, but I've been married to the same guy for quite some time, and if I could just remember his phone number, you know, I would be much better off. But since, especially in a disaster, when I might not have a calm mind to think about it, having it written down would really, really help. So everyone should have a copy of this card with them at all times. And at redcross.org, you can get all of this stuff, or you can make up your own card. But the card has room to record the names and numbers of work, school, and cell phones. And remember, if your cell phone is not functioning or you have no power, you're not going to be able to access your saved phone numbers, right? So don't depend on it. Go back old school, pen to paper. That sounds good. All right. You also want to choose an emergency contact and have everyone memorize the phone number if they can. That may be 911, but it also could mean a person who lives down the block that has childcare for you, or you know, a grandma who's you know, down the road a few miles. During a disaster, household members can text or call this person to let them know that they're safe. So make sure you include at least one friend or relative who lives out of town. So why do you suppose it's important to include someone who lives outside the area? Well, in regional emergencies, it may be difficult to make landline or mobile phone calls to others in your area, but you may be more likely to reach people outside your area, right? So make sure your household members know how to text. Those messages can often go quickly through, whereas a phone call sometimes cannot. You can use a text messaging app. You type a message and send it to a contact. You want to keep emergency telephone numbers in your cell phone and post them near your home phones, assuming that you still have landlines. Some good numbers to have are your emergency contact, the fire department, police station, and a hospital near you. In a major disaster, though, phones will be down and travel will be difficult. So think through, what if you get separated? What if loved ones outside the area want to find you and know that you're all right? How are you going to get them that message? So websites like Red Cross's Safe and Well or Facebook, like I mentioned, have those types of abilities. Make sure that your family knows that you're okay. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So being informed, like I say, it's one thing to be able to send a message to let people know that you're okay. It's also a great thing to be informed. We talked a little about being informed, about how important it is to know what hazards you should prepare for, but there is more to it. It's sort of an ongoing process. Here are some things that you should do. You should know how your community warns of an incoming disaster. Maybe these are the sirens. Others depend on media and smartphones to alert residents of severe weather or dangerous events. NOAA, the NOAA weather radio, is the weather radio I was mentioning earlier, and it can be put on battery power, radio or television for updated information. And this allows you to access important information even if the power is out, which, like I was talking about earlier, can be a very calming influence. You may also want to consider of having a list of the local stations in your disaster kit, just in case you need to contact them. You want to understand the difference between a watch and a warning. I love to see people's faces when I bring this up, because people go, watch and a warning, I can't remember. Let's talk about it. A watch means that there is a potential for a specific type of weather event or hazard. So you want to be alert, right? Be alert. Start making preparations, monitor weather and local emergency broadcasts, and be ready to take immediate action if conditions worsen, all right? A warning means that a specific type of severe weather or hazard is imminent or already occurring. You should take immediate action to protect yourself when a warning is issued. Do not wait. Sometimes I am at our Rock Hill office, and I actually live in Charlotte. It's about a half an hour going the back way around Lake Wylie. And I can tell you, I have not heeded that warning one too many times, and instead waited until I was finished doing what I was doing, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, finally left with what I needed, and I got caught in a storm, right? If you hear a warning, it means act immediately. So learn about an area also before you travel there. Know what disaster risks they face and how to protect yourself. For instance, when visiting an area known for earthquakes, know what to do when the shaking starts and after it stops. You also want to utilize any apps that you possibly can, and Red Cross has several. You can download the Red Cross Emergency app. It lets you monitor 35 different severe weather and emergency alerts. On my phone, I have the Hurricane app, which actually shows me not only where the open Red Cross shelters are, but what hurricanes and systems are moving through the area. And then, of course, know your neighbors. They can be good resources of community information or if someone needs help. And I can tell you, when I finally found a place to park in Northridge after the quake, I wound up at my friend's house, and she lived on a little street where everybody was out of their homes, because in their homes, everything had fallen into the middle of the house. Everything, refrigerators, bookshelves, the entire houses, everything went into the middle. And so because nobody felt safe in their own homes, they were all out on their sidewalks and on their lawns, and they were talking to each other. And in Los Angeles, this isn't a usual occurrence, right? Some people had lived next door to each other for 15 years and never spoken. Well, I can tell you it's a lot easier to ask for a diaper for your 10-month-old when you actually know the people that you're talking to on your block. It's nice to be able to say, hey, and not, trade names when a disaster hits. Know them beforehand, reach out, let them know that you care. Okay, next slide. Emotional health after disaster. We have learned today how to prepare, but we also have to recognize that the need to be ready for the aftermath of disaster should one occur. Disasters obviously can be stressful, but the good news is that there are things that we can do to help cope with stress. You want to be aware of your feelings that can come with disasters. You might feel physically and mentally drained. You might have difficulty making decisions or focusing. You might become easily frustrated. You want to find yourself arguing with friends and family. You feel sad or numb or lonely or worried. And you might experience changes in your appetite or sleep patterns. But you can help deal with this stress by doing several things. First and foremost is be sure you and your loved ones are safe. You want to eat as healthy as you can and drink as much water as you can. You want to get rest. They say in Red Cross all the time, you can't take care of others unless you're taking care of yourself. That is so true. You want to make sure that you get the rest and the food that you need in order to take care of the rest of your family. And of course, stay connected with family and friends. Like I mentioned, that communication, hearing from them, letting them know that you're okay, finding what's going on outside you, outside your immediate area. Be patient with yourself and those around you. You want to set priorities and break down small tasks or break down tasks into smaller chunks. Gather information about help and resources and try and stay positive and help others. This is true even with children. Very often you can have maybe a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old regress so that you need to start potty training again. This is not unusual or abnormal after a disaster. It inflicts it's harsh for both children and adults, but it will manifest itself in different ways. So again, gather information, help and resources. There are often mental health resources out there and available to you. Red Cross has them as well. And like I say, stay positive and help others if you can. Next slide. So this is about helping children cope. And again, like I was saying, they depend on you to help them cope. If they're evacuated or they're injured or they see hurt or dying people or they experience death or injury of a relative, friend, or pet, this can be very traumatic for a child. And so stress can also be magnified by temporarily living elsewhere, right? At a friend's house or grandma's house or whatever, if they're losing contact with friends. So you want to help children by remembering that how we adults react can affect how children react, right? If you're crazy emotional, then they'll be crazy emotional. However, they're also going to feel any confidence that you're able to exude because of the information that you've retrieved. So before a disaster, you want to help build confidence by including children in making those household disaster plans. You want to encourage your children to talk and listen to them, acknowledge their fears, and answer any questions as simply as you can. And during and after an event, you want to spend extra time with your children and as soon as possible, reestablish those daily routines. And truly consider limiting media exposure. These images of disaster can traumatize people, adults and children for years. Okay, next slide. So we've talked a lot about a lot of important information today, and I want to make sure that you don't forget about all the tools that you have that are available to help you and your loved ones and your community prepare for disasters. Like I was talking about, you want to use the contact cards to make sure everyone in your household can reach someone if disaster strikes. go ahead and download the Red Cross Emergency and First Aid apps onto your mobile device. These apps can provide you with vital information in the event of a disaster, and both are free and available on the Apple App Store or Google Play. So just like with your plan, you want to practice using them as well as the Safe and Well website. Once you're registered, you can have the option of updating your Facebook or Twitter feeds as well. Also, the apps and the Safe and Well website are available in Spanish. And remember, you can't count on technology alone. Phones break or lose their charge, cell coverage goes out, etc. So think about how you're going to communicate if those things become unavailable. All right, next slide. So I want to thank you for your attention today. Michelle, can you move on to the next slide? We're at Be Ready, Red Cross Ready checklist. Did I lose you, Michelle?
Nope, I'm here. Can you see it?
Oh, okay. I see tools. You go forward one?
So
Do you see the checklist? Because if you see
yes,
it, that's
I
okay.
do. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So, okay, so to be fully prepared, be sure to create and practice your disaster plan. Build your kits, don't put it off, and become informed about your community. Also, please consider taking a Red Cross first aid class or becoming a Red Cross volunteer, because together we can help our community be prepared for any disaster. So how do you rank on this checklist here? Do you know what disasters are most likely in your area? I'm hoping all of your hands go up. And then perhaps, because this is one of a 3-part series, we can check in with you next month to find out if you have a household disaster plan yet and have practiced using it. If you've made a head start on having a disaster preparedness kit, and if you have at least one member in your household who's trained in CPR and first aid.